Hey, it's Ed again. Just Ed. Nothing fancy this time. Um, I mean, it's still going to be a story, and the story's about a quill. And I racked my brain on this one and couldn't really come up with my own story. Um, Especially when I did pen a little bit before, and they just they just all kind of sounded the same. So I decided to shift gears and go from uh, a made up story or a creepypasta that I could find um, to something a little more real. When I was when I was in the sixth grade, my teacher, who was a big literary enthusiast, he made the class each choose a famous play and do a report on it. And I decided to do Macbeth. Um, and the play itself as like a story to do a report on. And oh man, was that not working? A sixth grader with like maybe an eighth grade reading level trying to a read a play with stage direction like it was a story and understand what was going on was just maybe you could do it. I couldn't do it. So so my mother found a movie of it, which oddly enough was produced by Playboy. Yes, that Playboy. Um, but outside of the witch scenes, nobody was naked. Well, okay, no, there was two scenes where people were naked, but they weren't doing anything. They were just being naked. Like not like Playboy would. Yeah. You know what? This is more awkward than I thought it would be. Um, I'm gonna get right to the point. Uh, so I I was always told. Uh, I shouldn't say always, but I was repeatedly told that Macbeth was Shakespeare's cursed play. And obviously, Shakespeare, depending upon what you believe about him, um, he would have written it with a quill. So I found a an article by the Royal Shakespeare Company, um, and I'm going to read it to you because it deals with this curse. And I knew little things about it, but this one's a little bit more in a little bit more detail. It doesn't immediately say who wrote this, um, but I'll leave a link to the original in the description below. Uh, Sorry if this story is a bit more meta than the usual creepy stuff, but I really enjoyed this play. It terrified me too. Like I watched that and I still remember how Macduff describes to the men what death is. He says he calls to his men and says, "Rise, rise from sleep, death's counterfeit. And I hung on to that line. I loved that line. But anyway, it says 16th century Scotland was notorious for its witch hunts, mainly due to King James VI of Scotland's obsession with witchcraft. The violent death of his mother Mary, Queen of Scots, by execution in 1587, was said to have inspired James's dark fascination with magic. Later, in 1589, when James was sailing back to Scotland from Denmark with his new wife Anne, their ship encountered violent storms at sea, and they were nearly drowned. The Scottish king blamed the evil spells of witches for conjuring the storm, and following his return to Scotland, ordered a witch hunt in the coastal town of North Berwick. He later wrote Daemonology, a treatise on witchcraft to further inspire persecution against witches. James became King James of England in 1603, and his new subjects were keen to appease him and his views on the demonic. Christopher Marlowe's Dr. Faustus was published in 1604, and its shocking portrayal of witchcraft and association with the devil intensified England's fear of sorcery. Shakespeare's Macbeth followed in 1606, with direct references to James's earlier misfortune at sea. Though his bark cannot be lost, yet his shall be tempest-tossed. Shakespeare was also said to have researched the weird sisters in depth. Their chants in Macbeth and ingredients of the fenny snake, eye of newt, and toe of frog are supposedly real spells. According to folklore, Macbeth was cursed from the beginning. A coven of witches objected to Shakespeare's using real incantation, so they put a curse on the play. Legend has it, the play's first performance, around 1606, was riddled with disaster. The actor playing Lady Macbeth died suddenly, so Shakespeare himself had to take on the part. Other rumored mishaps include real daggers being used in place of stage props for the murder of King Duncan, resulting in an actor's death. The play hasn't had much luck since. The famous Astor Place riot in New York in 1849, caused by rivalry between American actor Edwin Forrest and English actor William Charles Macready, resulted in at least 20 deaths and over 100 injuries. Both Forrest and Macready were playing Macbeth in opposing productions at that time. Other productions have been plagued with accidents, including actors falling off the stage, mysterious deaths, and even narrow misses by falling stage weights, as happened to Laurence Olivier at the Old Vic in 1937. Macbeth was also seen as unlucky by theater companies, as it usually meant that the theater was in financial trouble. Macbeth was, and still is, a popular play that was guaranteed an income, so if it was suddenly announced, it could mean that the theater was struggling. Equally, the high production cost to stage that play could also bankrupt a theater, referenced in Martin Harrison's 1998 book, The Language of Theater. So how can you avoid catastrophe if you utter the play that shall not be named? Exit the theater, spin around 3 times, spit, curse, and then knock on the theater door to be allowed back in. This all seems very old, but remember that the actor, Dana Wynyard, fell off the stage in Stratford's 1948 production during the sleepwalking scene, as for whatever reason she decided to do it with her eyes closed. Apparently the night before she had told a reporter that she thought the curse was ridiculous. A few sources reference that she ended up plunging 15 feet into the pit when she walked off the stage in the sleepwalking scene. Miraculously, she was unharmed. But I like to focus a little bit more on how this all happens in the 1600s. Not long after that, we have our own series of witch hunts. It frightens me when I think about the number of men and women burned at the stake, drowned in witch trials, tortured by the stone, all inspired by a play written by just one Quill. That's all it took. A man at a writing desk with a quill took hundreds of lives, if not thousands, in miserable ways, horrible ways, all crafted from a little fear and a feather of a bird.